Welcome back, everyone, once again to the Football Goons podcast. This week, we are looking at part 5 and the final installment of the NFL Draft Preview Series and focusing on the group that typically gets all of the attention. I believe last week, Miles referred to them as the country club, the quarterback position. Look, there's a ton of drama surrounding this position this year, and nobody really agrees on too much pertaining to these top players specifically. So we're most likely going to end up arguing or disagreeing along the way as well. And that's a lot of the fun of it, to be quite honest with you. So we're going to really kind of get right into things tonight. Normally we'll kind of shoot the breeze a little bit at the top of the show, but I want to allow for as much time as we can, specifically talking about the quarterbacks tonight. And I will start off with probably the biggest news of the last couple days was Dez Bryant being released by the Cowboys. Maybe a surprise, maybe not really a surprise. Just real quick thoughts on the Dez Bryant release. Is it good for the Cowboys, bad for the Cowboys? We don't really know yet. And where do you kind of see him ending up?
I think this is great for both parties. I mean, I know Dez is really pissed off right now, and I guess he has somewhat of a reason to be, but I've been saying for 2 years now that he is largely ignored by Dak Prescott. And maybe it's scheme, maybe it's, Dak doesn't like taking big risks, which is really what Dez's game is, is deep balls and, end zone, red zone targets and stuff like that. So I think that's where he really excels. So I think a fresh start for Dez will be good. I don't think it's going to be in the NFC East as he wants it to be. That's just my opinion. There's just not the Eagles don't have enough money. The Giants don't need 2 Odell Beckhams, in terms of personality. And I mean, although the Redskins could do it, I don't know necessarily that they want to go down that route either. So I think he winds up someplace else. I think the Niners are a good landing spot for him. I think if he wants to stay in the NFC and take a chance at maybe facing Dallas in the playoffs, that would be a good look. They need a wide receiver. Obviously, they have the cap space. But in terms of the Cowboys, they don't really use him. They really don't. I've said for 2 years now that they really underuse the talent that he has. And people talk about the drops and all this stuff, but you still got to feed the best wide receiver on your team, which there's no denying that talent-wise he was the best wide receiver on that team last year. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah, you said some funny things there, mostly Dallas and playoffs. So
I'm just saying, I don't think it's going to happen. But I mean, that if Dez wants to face him twice, that's the only chance. So no, but I think it's good for both teams. Dallas doesn't use him the right way. Dez needs a fresh start someplace else. So I think that although Dez is pissed off about it, I think this is the right move.
Look, it doesn't make any sense to me. Obviously it's a locker room thing at this point because you're still on the hook for a ton of money with him and you're still paying Tony Romo to sit in the broadcast booth. So in 2 players that are not even on your team anymore, you've got a ton of cap room for this year sunk into them. So I don't know. Maybe I would have just kept him around and let it play out or see if there's a trade market that opens up or something, considering that you're basically paying him all the money anyway. It didn't make sense to me from their perspective, other than a locker room thing. To me, it's got a Baltimore kind of move written all over it. I mean, this is kind of what Baltimore does. They bring in guys who are on the tail end of their prime, heading back down the other side of the hill a little bit. They've had the Derek Mason push, Steve Smith, and they bring in some other veteran guys, Jeremy Maclin. Probably none of them at the talent level that Dez is at. So it could be an intriguing move for them, but I kind of see him ending up there.
I'm not sure where he's going to go, but I kind of like it again for both parties too, just because the act seemed it's over. It just seemed like time to move on for, I guess, both. I mean, you say it's good for both parties, and maybe it's good in our mind for Dez Bryant, but with how upset he is, mentally, that's not good for him. Yeah. He's clearly unhappy with how it turned out. Not that you blame him, but I guess the only reason I'll dislike it from the Cowboys' perspective is, well, yeah, okay, Dak kind of ignored him and, at least ignored him in terms of number 1 receiver potential. But so his production was down and his ability was a little bit down, but you've really pigeonholed yourself now at that position for Dallas that's a priority, like with a capital every single letter, and you might even throw some extra letters in there just to capitalize some more stuff.
Exclamation points for sure.
Yeah, that receiver group. I mean, listen, Cole Beasley's okay. Terrence Williams is okay, but you're an idiot if you think they're good for any reason other than teams were worried about Des Bryant when those guys were producing. I mean, Alan Hearns comes in. He's okay, but you don't have anybody that's ready to compete, especially in that division where teams can put up points. So I'll say division, but conference more than that. I mean, what's the goal here? To win games. How are you going to score with the Rams and the Saints and the Falcons and the Eagles and the Giants, who the Giants are going to be back, the Packers? You just can't without a legitimate weapon in the passing game. How many times have we said it's a passing league? And you don't have a legitimate weapon. Even all due respect to Jason Witten, you're like 100. So I don't understand, I guess, the path, because I think you've pigeonholed yourself. Hey, free agency's over. You're not bringing in Jarvis Landry. He's not coming. All this stuff is over. You almost have to go receiver at 19, and I hate that for them. If they wanted to do it, fine, but I hate to see it forced.
Question for you. Do you think they made a mistake and thought that Alan Hearns was actually Allen Robinson and that they got a different Jaguars receiver than they actually got? That's the only thing that says we got to cut Dez.
If it was Jerry Jones making the calls, I could see that happening, but I don't think he's made the calls in a couple of years. But yeah, it's possible. Hey, we got that guy from the Jags, Allen. We're good. Cut him.
That's a part of it for me is I don't understand the timing. The timing was horrible. Why didn't you do this earlier if it was your plan? Now, I don't know what happened, how it escalated. Apparently, Dez wanted to be there, so I can't imagine he went in throwing a fit. So it seems like they didn't want him all along. So why didn't they cut him earlier when they could have gotten Jarvis or Allen Robinson and Allen Hearns? I would have been okay with that, but now you're stuck with nobody and having to take somebody in the draft. And, they might luck out there. They might apparently they think they don't need Dez, so they might not take anybody at 19 either. I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, I don't like it for them. I think San Francisco is a good spot. I think there's a couple spots where I think he could end up going to the Jaguars too. So they still have an opening now that they lost Hearns and Allen Robinson, and they have some money there. I think they have about $38 million that's to spend still, even though, it's going to be much higher next year, but if he can go for a 1-year deal, maybe that would be a good spot for him.
The worst part about this is talking about the draft is real quick, South. I know you want to get on, but the worst part is if someone takes Calvin Ridley early, someone can trade up and get Sutton, and then you're kind of stuck with, now we got to take the third guy on the board because we were almost guaranteed that one of those two were going to fall to us. So now they have to be aggressive in getting a wide receiver on top of everyone in the league knowing that they need to go get a wide receiver. And that's a bad place to be.
But do you think that?
Well, real quick, I'll do respect to the two guys you said. This is not the receiver class to get desperate with.
No, exactly. So
even Ridley and Sutton, in my mind, the more I'm studying this, 19 is too early for those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think they'll take a receiver at 19 if both those guys are gone. I think it would be silly to. You're way jumping ahead.
No, but what I'm saying is let's say somebody reaches for Ridley at 12 or 13. Now they got it. Now the Cowboys may be saying, okay, if Sutton's our guy, we need to be aggressive, and now we need to go up and get him rather than sitting and waiting and falling the way we thought it was going to.
I think if those guys go, or if one of them goes, I think move up or move back are their only plays.
Yeah, I mean, you could just abort the mission at that point and just find somebody later on. You know what I mean? Yes, you missed your target, but don't get crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
whoever you draft is the best receiver on your team. So at least roll with that.
Get somebody in the first round. They're
fourth round, still good.
All right, let's talk about the quarterbacks. All right, we've arrived at the point, draft preview prep, all this stuff where we are talking about the quarterbacks. This is the final installment here. And depending on where you turn, everyone has a different ranking, especially for the top four. But the one consistent thing is that the top four are generally the top four. We see some Lamar sneak in and out of there from time to time. but overwhelmingly, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Allen are the top 4 guys. So I'm going to throw out this first question, and then I'll roll back with some additional questions. But out of those 4 guys, who is your favorite in this class and why?
It's Baker for me. That I honestly, we started doing the series on the website like 5 weeks ago, and I've done almost a complete 180 on every single guy in the quarterback class except Baker Mayfield. That's the one thing my opinion's not changed on. He was my favorite all college football season. He was my favorite as I started studying the draft. He's my favorite now, especially for a select few teams. Then he's heads and shoulders above everybody else. But Mayfield's still my guy. I love his attitude. I love his playmaking ability. I think he fits what the league is turning into. A little bit, I was going to say a little bit less prototypical, but he's actually what the prototype is starting to be. I mean, he's going to be a part of changing what a prototypical quarterback looks like. And he has some shortcomings, of course, but he is definitely my favorite of the 4, though a couple of them have certainly narrowed the gap as I've studied more.
Yeah, Mayfield's actually my favorite as well. I just think like all the intangibles he brings in terms of like leadership and attitude, I think he'll grow up from what we saw last year. His one big issue that everyone keeps talking about is immaturity. Like he's 22. Like he'll grow up. It's going to happen. But in terms of the other things that make him so special, his accuracy, his ability to know where to go with the football, like those are things you can't like coach. Those are just things that you either are an accurate quarterback and know when to do that, or you don't. So those things make him my favorite as well.
Yeah, he's actually mine too. He's been mine all along. All the same reasons, but I will say that Josh Allen has become quickly my second favorite and is really close now with Baker.
I'll jump on it and make it 4 for 4 with Baker Mayfield here. As everybody else is kind of saying, we've kind of been on him from the beginning here, and I think a lot of people have, as the draft process unfolds here, moved away a little bit from that. So I don't quite get it. Look, we've kind of touched on it. He's got what you look for in a leader. Okay. The team has shown time and time again that they rally around this guy. They love the fact that he's going to battle for them. He fights for them. We were concerned about his arm talent. That is no longer a concern there. His accuracy is fantastic. His anticipation is great. I heard something the other day that I really loved from Bruce Arians, who is now retired. But he said that the biggest hurdle that a lot of these kids have coming out of the draft and into the NFL, and where you see the least improvement of quarterbacks, is accuracy and anticipation. And I think it's very telling that with the success that he's had with some of his quarterbacks, obviously, he knows what he's talking about, at least to a degree. So when I look at the way that, Baker anticipates the routes, his throws, everything, his accuracy, you cannot really improve much more on that. So obviously there's going to be a learning curve for the next level, but that's the absolute biggest selling point for me on it.
Yeah, I think you go into we bring up with a lot of these guys, especially it's one of my favorite things to say as I'm going through again, writing these articles. I'm noticing I say it a lot. Hey, when you get into NFL coaching and NFL film rooms, you learn those things. But when you say anticipation and accuracy are the big deal, of course you're not going to grow much in that area. Listen, the windows aren't getting any bigger, and the defense isn't reacting to your eyes slower than they did in the Big 12. I mean, those are the types of things that, yeah, these other guys might improve there, but man, I'm definitely taking the guy who's already got a plus check mark in those categories, so that I'm not waiting on a guy who couldn't diagnose at the college level to be able to do it when defensive schemes are improved, defensive playmakers are improved, the speed of the game is faster, there's a lot more pressure. I'm not going to count on those other guys improving in that category.
You know what else? You know what else is amazing me about Baker is like the fact that he's a Heisman Trophy winner. He finished in the Final Four. His team finished in the Final Four, and yet he plays like he's got this gigantic chip on his shoulder. Like he knows that one of the big knocks on him was playing in the Big 12, not taking a lot of snaps on the center. So what does he do to prove a point? Every single snap at his pro day was from under center. not like a mock center where like he's just like standing there holding the football and like snapping it to himself. Like he took every snap from center at his pro day to prove a point. Like you don't see guys, first round prospects, going out there trying to prove points like that. You know what I mean? So his attitude is off the charts compared to the other guys for me.
Well, and we're still talking about the guy's size. Like everywhere you turn, everybody has to overanalyze. Is he too small? You know, is he going to be able to do it? Can he see over these offensive linemen? Is he going to be? That's going to put a giant chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
When everybody constantly questions your size. When I just looked up a couple days ago some of the draft comps on some of these guys, it made me laugh out loud how many NFL draft experts had a comp on him of Doug Flutie. Like, why? Because they're small?
And he's not that small either. Like,
no, like, do we just take people who have similar body compositions and size and say that's that person?
Right out there,
yeah. Like, I'm not saying he's Russell Wilson or Breeze, but like this is exactly what people talked about with those guys. Well, they can't be NFL quarterbacks. They're 6 foot. You know, they're 5'11". They're 6 foot. They're barely over 6 foot. Well, you know what? It can work. Those two are pretty good at what they do. So, you know, I'm not saying Baker's going to be that, but like enough with like if that's your only knock on him, then just shut up and wait and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, and that seems to be that, and the maturity level seem to be the only knocks. You can't knock his game. You can't knock his accuracy, his throwing ability, his leadership. So they have to find something.
67.4 is his completion percentage on the move as well, which is just
crazy.
Fantastic. So. All right, so that obviously begs the question then, who is your least favorite? Now, I want to throw this out there and say this. We are not necessarily saying that we completely dislike whoever we name here, okay? We're just saying that this is our least favorite of the four. Now, you can call it out and say that, hey, I hate this person, whatever, but I'm just throwing that primer out there. So, least favorite of the four.
I don't hate him, but I have been saying for over a year now that I think Darnold is going to be a bust. That I think, you know, he just is not going to cut it in the NFL. So he's my least favorite of this group. I don't know. I mean, in the right situation, right coaching, he could probably turn it around. But if he goes number 1 to the Browns, I don't like his chances. If he goes number 2 to the Giants and has to sit behind Eli for a couple of years and not get the playing experience, I don't know if I like his chances. You know what I mean? So I think he's got some issues with his mechanics. I know that he's trying to, you know, prove everybody wrong on that, but it has become a topic of conversation since the fall. And, you know, I just he's the guy that I least want the Jets to take at this point in the 3rd spot.
I'm going to just jump in here because I also say that Sam is my least favorite of this group. Look, you know, we're nitpicking a little bit at times to find someone who's our least favorite, I would say. My issues are I was never concerned about his release. And then you kept talking about it. I kept watching things. You called that out probably 2 years ago on his release.
Well, it was after last year's Rose Bowl. So
yeah, it's so elongated. And from what I have heard from a lot of people, the main concern with him, he's got all the measurables. He's got all the intangibles that you look for. But his release is so funky that a lot of people don't believe that he'll be able to fix it because he's got such a repetition and like his muscle memory is for this release. So that concerns me a little bit. And then when I looked at things related to that, when you look at the percentage of balls that he's thrown into tight coverage, he's got the least of anybody. Sorry, not the least, but he's among the lowest of anybody in this draft class. Only 19% of his throws were into what they would consider tight coverage. So you got to wonder, you know, is he looking for, you know, big opportunities? Is he worried about that? And then another thing I've been looking into a lot is how these quarterbacks read and understand defenses. He only throws 13% of his balls go beyond his first read, which to me seems pretty insane. Like I get that like college systems are different, so they're designed for, you know, quick releases and things like that. So I don't want to put too much weight on it, but 87% of his throws went to his first read.
That's a lot.
So? I don't know, like
so like
no, I'm trying to oversimplify it the other way, but it's just it almost feels like, and I know again you're not saying you hate Sam Darnold or whatever, and you think he's going to be horrible, but like I'm sure any of the four I can pick out a number and be like, this guy only does this percent of the time. Listen, Sam Darnold's awesome. He's really good. he shreds the Pac-12, which whatever. I mean, listen, he makes some mistakes. He throws some picks. Guys do that. Peyton Manning threw a lot of picks, a whole bunch of them. It's all about what you think of these guys, and it's time for everybody in the scouting community to let go of like, okay, college offenses are quick release. So is the NFL. This is like one of the only times I feel like the NFL lagged behind college, because now the NFL is all about quick screens, slants. Half the time when teams are coming back, it's not because they're taking shots downfield. They're chipping away at you and getting you tired. That's what the league is. That's what football is now. So the fact that he throws to his first player 87% of the time, I'm fine with that. Should it be closer to 80? I don't know. What's the benchmark for success there? All I know is he hits his receivers. He puts up numbers. The fact that he came back in that Rose Bowl that we're nitpicking because he throws the ball so elongated, he was down like 30 points to Penn State and Saquon Barkley and came back and won. I don't know. Like, listen, I'm not Mr. Darnold here, but it almost seems arbitrary that we're like, oh, man, 87% to his first guy. I don't understand why that's a knock.
It just feels like it's going to be a process for him to process things at the next level. It really does. It just feels like the offense was so simplified, and maybe that's just a coaching issue. I don't know, but I'm just throwing it out there. You know, it's worth considering. Like, how many of these guys have all the tools? They look good when you put the video on, but then when you get to that next level, they just can't process the speed of the game. I guess that's my concern. You know, you mentioned it in the first one, like the windows are going to get smaller. You know, the players are going to get bigger and faster. You know, every guy is an All-American at the next level compared to what we saw.
I think another reason it's a knock is because he is throwing a lot of picks. So he's forcing it to the first option. It's not like the first option's been open 87% of the time too. So right. he's throwing it 87% of the time to the guy he sees first, even if it's not a good decision. He's not my guy though. I'll mention my.
Yeah, I'll jump in there on that. We seem to have lost Deal for a second here. My least favorite guy. Oh, sorry, man. We lost you. I jumped in real quick.
Go ahead.
Mine's actually Josh Allen. Now that you're back, so I'll pick on the guy you just kind of
thanks. I love
beefed up a little bit the first time around. He's been mine that I don't get it with. Weeks ago when we did the article, he was my don't buy the hype. He's done nothing to change that for me. Listen, poor competition combined with poor accuracy numbers and bad decision making is not a recipe for success. Listen, I get it. Measurables off the charts. Awesome. Good for you. Arm strength, it's the best we've seen come out since maybe Jamarcus Russell, and I use that comp on purpose. Yep. There are a lot of other things Jamarcus Russell did not have, and Josh Allen has that in common with him as well. So I don't know. It's so dangerous to draft based on potential, and somebody's going to do it. This guy's a second-round prospect to me. I love him if he's in Pittsburgh, if he's in New England. Even the Giants at 2, I don't think is a thing, but that's the only team up there that it's excusable for me.
Right. Because
he will sit and learn. And that's why drafting on potential is a good thing if you have that opportunity to let the guy sit and learn. I mean, we didn't study the draft as well in 2005 as we do now. I don't know what Aaron Rodgers truly was. But don't tell me that some of the fact that he's possibly the greatest quarterback we've ever seen, don't tell me some of that's not from sitting behind Brett Favre for 3 years instead of being thrown into the fire. So if that kind of thing happens with Allen, fine. But I am terrified Cleveland is taking him 1 because they see Carson Wentz with his build and some of his talent and say, hey, we passed on Carson Wentz once. Let's not do it again. This is not Carson Wentz, at least not yet.
Right.
I won't say I hate Josh Allen. I love him if the situation's right.
Yeah, Allen's the guy for me.
Browns Jets, not the right situation.
No, 100%. I agree. Like I'm out on Allen for the Jets. So if you're listening, please
save your specifics. All right, we're not getting into specifics yet, so we'll throw out the deal.
I was gonna just to argue with Miles a little bit. The reason why I like Allen more than I like Darnold, and the measurables are there, and I'm hoping that he goes someplace where someone can teach him how to be accurate. Because if they can, then I like him more than Darnold because all the other stuff is there.
Oh, he's the best. He's the best quarterback we've seen come out in ages. If he can sit and absorb and learn.
Yeah,
if you can put a real NFL brain on that body and ability,
yeah,
he'll break records.
That's my point, I guess, and that's why I like Darnold less because like I feel like Darnold's already at a max. I mean, I know that's not fair, but like I feel like Darnold's already at a max. Where yes, he can learn an NFL offense. I get that, but like ability wise, he's already at a max. Can you imagine if someone could fix Josh Allen's accuracy? Like then we're talking about an all-time great. So that's why he's not my bottom guy.
My bottom guy is a guy not a lot of people are listing as their bottoms is Josh Rosen. And part of the reason is some of exactly what you guys just said. The first thing, Rocco, what you just said is I think he's at his max. Everybody else, I think the other three guys, Miles, you said with Allen that you don't want somebody to draft for like what he potentially could be. I think that's what all these other three guys are. I think you're drafting what they possibly could be. Like Darnold, he's been up and down. Allen could be unbelievable, could be Jamarcus Russell, you know, and Baker could be Johnny Manziel again. So all of them were drafting with some scare. And Josh Rosen is a guy that everybody's like, well, he's the most sure thing. Well, part of that now he has to go in and start right out of the gates. He doesn't have the benefit of sitting behind somebody. He's going to be expected to start day one, especially if he goes to the Browns or if he goes to the Jets. And you're not drafting him for potential. You think he's the real deal. And I'm afraid that this is it for him, that he's not going to get much better from here. All these other three guys could surpass him by a lot. Their ceiling is, in my opinion, far higher than his. Their floor, not quite as high, obviously, but I think their ceilings are much higher, and I think they'll outgrow him pretty quickly.
Yeah, Rosen seems like he's the safest bet of the group in terms of like this is what you're gonna get.
Right.
You might not get a superstar, but you're not going to get a Johnny Manziel or a Jamarcus Russell. Yeah, like
he's going to be,
you know what I mean. Kid. So he's just going to be a good average quarterback. You know, I've seen a lot. Honestly, I've seen a lot of comps to Matt Ryan, and other than Matt Ryan's MVP year, Matt Ryan has been a very average quarterback. You know what I mean? So not to bash on Matt Ryan, because I mean, as a Jets fan, I would take 10 years of Matt Ryan. Trust me, believe me. I'll bet money on it. I would take 10 years of Matt Ryan.
Right. My big knock, and I hate to just recycle takes, but the thing you hear of Rosen is, does he love football? And I get it. I buy it a little bit with him. I don't buy the whole he wants to be explained why he has to do stuff. I actually like that. I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
There are guys that just do what they're told, and there are guys who not so much question it like, I don't want to, but tell me why. And as a coach, you should be able to do that. Yeah. So I'm good with that. But the other question of like, does he really love it? Because you have to. Like, by all accounts, the NFL's a grind. I'm not out here for the fun of it. I'm not out here for the girls like you might be at UCLA. You know, I mean, this is a job. You're there all the time in the weight room, in the film room. Do it. And the comment he made this week about, you know, hey, I want to win 6 Super Bowls. Unless Tom gets another one, then it's 7. That's the only quote we've ever heard that shows me he cares about football, and it feels so agent-driven.
Yep.
Or his agent's just like, dude, you got to say something. So then he's like, all right, I want to win the most Super Bowls ever. I don't know. It felt really fake to me, and it didn't answer that one question. So for me with Rosen, I like his ability a lot. And like you said, Rock, like, okay, Matt Ryan's a pretty good comp because he's really good, and I'd take it. But if the going gets tough for this guy, he might just walk away. If you don't love it, you're just going to leave. And that terrifies me.
I'm going to use one example of a guy who has openly admitted that he said he did not love football, but had a pretty good career. And that was Curtis Martin. Like, I mean, it would be almost fitting if Josh Rosen doesn't love football, winds up a Jet. But like, no, like, I don't think I mean, we talk about how you have to love it because the guys that you're competing against on an everyday basis love it. But like, if you're just good at it and you treat it like a job, I think that's okay too. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
I don't think you have to be like. There are plenty of quarterbacks in this league that are not like rah 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 rah, that are still very good quarterback. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I think there's
maybe
a
I'm making
difference.
excuses for him because I'm it's just in case he winds up a Jet. I don't want to bash him, but
And you might be, but I think one of the big differences between him and Curtis Martin is Curtis Martin had a lot driving him to do it anyways, which is his family and his upbringing and that.
Definitely different backgrounds and stuff like that. Josh Rosen does not have to worry about what's going to happen to him if he winds up on the street, because he's not going to wind up on the street.
And even on top of that, just the positional thing, especially, let's keep using the Jets. You're the quarterback of one of the two teams in the biggest market in the country. If things are going sour, you got a lot of questions. Like when the Jets struggled, it wasn't Curtis. What are you doing? He was able to, yes, he was a major player and he was interviewed. I'm not saying he hid in the corner of the locker room, but listen, if you don't want to be here, you don't want to be the NFL quarterback, especially not New York.
No.
Right. It just doesn't work, especially if you can fall back on a real job and some money and parents and so on and so forth, which a lot of these guys, unfortunately, don't have to fall back on.
So quickly then, the follow-up to those two questions then, at least in my opinion, is which of these guys' production is going to be most dependent on where they're drafted? Because you look at a guy like Rosen and we're saying maybe he's the safest bet. You can kind of plug him in. He's going to be, a consistent quarterback. At least that's the way it appears. But then some of the other guys, it feels like they might be a little more dependent on where they go. So which one is most dependent?
It's Allen for me. Yeah, we already discussed that. Yeah, we already discussed that his biggest issues are accuracy and level of competition. If he goes someplace like the Jets or the Browns where he's got to start from day one, it's not a good look. If he goes to someplace like the Broncos where he gets to sit for a year behind Case Keenum and kind of develop, then great. But, I don't like it at all if he goes to one of those other teams. So for his issues that he has, he needs to sit, which means he can't go Browns, Jets.
I disagree to that point only. I do believe that Allen is the most dependent, but I kind of look at what Cleveland has done, like with some of their offensive weapons and the way they've put guys in the passing game there. They're putting guys in there that would kind of really suit his skill set. Jarvis Landry,
run
a guy
fast,
with those,
run long.
yeah, well, a guy with, those intermediate ability. And then you got a guy like Josh Gordon who's going to win 50-50 balls. And, you just have elements there who are going to help that along. So I believe that he's the most dependent, but I don't think Cleveland is the biggest worry, at least on paper, for what they're putting around him potentially.
Yeah, I'll actually agree to that note. Again, Allen's my guy, but I'm going to contradict myself from 10 minutes in the past. Browns, Jets, I'm actually cool with as long as we're committed to Tyrod Taylor and Teddy Bridgewater. If they're the quarterback this year, I'm good. I'm good. And again, kind of like you said, South, especially Cleveland, then he comes in 2019 and you're throwing to Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry, Corey Coleman, David Njoku. You've got Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde in the backfield and one of probably the top 5 lines in the league, assuming they address left tackle. That's a big deal now. But Cleveland, maybe not the worst spot. And the Jets, maybe not the worst spot to a lesser extent, but I like the Jets skill position players too. Just give me a year of Tyrod and Teddy. Don't throw this kid out there.
Yeah, I agree. It's Allen. Same reasons as you. I'll also say I hope he goes somewhere with a good offensive coordinator and a good quarterbacks coach. That's really what he needs the most. He needs somebody to play ahead of him, really teach him the ropes. You can sit back and watch the NFL game better close up. But I really want him to go somewhere. I think Ken Zampese could be a decent look for him, but I want him to get some good mentoring there too.
All right, so Lamar Jackson continues to be a hot topic here. And, less teams now, it seems like, are discussing him playing another position, but he's not getting a whole lot of run with the top 4 guys. And I'm wondering, and I'm throwing out the question, do you believe that the way that he's kind of been representing himself is hurting him at all? There's some reports out there that, he was really difficult to get in touch with. Did he have an agent? Did he not have an agent? Was he trying to represent himself and set up all of his stuff? How much do you buy into that? Was it hurting him?
I buy it a lot in the sense of there are so few teams that view his style of play as doable in the NFL. I'll say it that way. You know, most guys want a more traditional pocket passer. Like even guys like Baker Mayfield, like it takes his market is small. You know what I mean? So Lamar not being as good as Baker, his market is even smaller. So if you're doing things to turn off any of the teams that might have been interested in you before, then you're really just hurting yourself, you know? So being that you have a smaller group of people looking at you to begin with, because you're not up there at the top of this draft class, you almost have to do everything perfect. And he seems like he's not. He's making too many, little mistakes in terms of the process. So I think he's hurting himself.
I think so too, mostly in terms of, I said earlier, I'm doing a 180 on all these guys, and Lamar's another one because I came out on fire as he was my number 2 guy. And even when we did the article, he was my guy that I think was underrated, even though he was a late first round prospect. And now I'll say it only takes one. There's 32 teams. One of them has to buy him. And I think that's ultimately going to happen. But for me, it's the hard to get a hold of because he doesn't have an agent, or maybe he does, kind of thing. But on top of that, all these guys are working with like QB gurus, major guys, as the draft process. And he's got somebody from high school helping him. And by most / all accounts, he looked even worse mechanics-wise at his pro day than he did at the combine, which was the big knock on him at the combine, is that his mechanics were rough. So all you did between that is hang out with a buddy from high school, and now you looked even worse with your own receivers. So I just think if I'm a team, how seriously are you taking this when you know the knocks against you and you did nothing in several weeks to even sort of clean them up? I'm nervous about him. I love, obviously his physical skill set is unequaled, but does that matter if this isn't that important to you? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I kind of echo what you're saying there. Look, the upside is unbelievable.
Sure.
How many times could you hear him compared to Michael Vick? You look at the way he releases the ball, the effortless release, the way that he could just absolutely spin it and put some zip on it. And, obviously he's a playmaker, but the one thing that I definitely worry about with him is he's small and he's going to get hit. So, I mean, how willing are you to keep getting hit over and over again to kind of fit what you do best? You know what I mean? And that's kind of my knock on him there. I do think that you do need to, if you're trying to position yourself as one of these top guys, you've got to take every opportunity that you have, be out there, be accessible. Is it super important? Who knows? Who knows how teams really look at that? But if you're trying to put yourself in the discussion with these guys, you got to be out there and selling yourself.
I see Tim Tebow written all over him. It's with a worse attitude. Like you don't even have a good attitude. You're a real positive, upbeat guy. He seems like that athlete guy that's just going to be too stubborn to do what teams want him to do and play a different position. And then he's going to become an analyst, except he's annoying and nobody wants to hear from him. So he's not going to become an analyst. So I hope he has a backup plan.
All right. So what we're going to do here real quick is we'll take like 30 to 45 seconds here, and we'll kind of make this almost like a make the case kind of thing where you're just going to get your say. Give me a day 3 type prospect who you believe is going to turn some heads here and, could be really effective moving forward. And the only caveat here is that we're not going to talk about anybody that we wrote about previously. I'll go first because by the rules, I'm not allowed to talk about my boy Mike White, except that I'll just throw a quick Mike White reference in there and say that I've been, high on this dude since last offseason. So beyond that, I'm going to talk about Luke Falk. And the reason for that is really this. When you talk about the kind of things that you look for in a quarterback, especially a more developmental quarterback, he's got fairly decent mobility. He's accurate. He's smart. He makes good decisions. He's by all accounts a student of the game, so he's willing to learn behind somebody. He's got good size. He's got really, a good frame for an NFL quarterback. The real knock on him is, does he have, the strength to make some of the throws? And I think that he kind of showed that he's erased a little bit of that doubt through the combine and the pre-draft process. So he's raw. There's still some development to be had, but because you can draft this kid and sit him behind, an aging veteran, and he could just sit and learn, and pick up all these different things to develop his game further, I think that he's a perfect day 3 type pick.
I'll jump in and give you mine, which is no one. I'm going rogue here again. I don't like any of these later guys. Even as like camp arm, third string, you can do better. For me, if you fall out of the top 3 rounds in this class, forget it. Every one of them has the knock of accuracy and or arm strength. No thanks. I'm good. I'm just all around going to pass.
I followed the rules. And gun to my head. South, I think you broke your own rule because I think Falk's more of a day 2 guy. So I went legit day 3.
Can I real quick jump in? Yeah. I like Luke Falk and I really like Mike White. Neither one of them is going to be around on Saturday. I'm talking Saturday only.
I went with the Saturday guy. I think he will be a camp arm. I think he'll work his way into a team. And he has his knocks. I don't think he is a starting quarterback, but I think he could be a relevant backup. One of those journeyman backup guys that'll be in the league. And that's Logan Woodside. Anytime I look at a prospect, at a day 3 prospect, I need consistency and I need longevity. Like, it's not going to be a flash in the pan, because if he was good and a flash in the pan, he'd be in the top 2 rounds. Right. You know what I mean? So it's got to be someone that's been playing a while. Woodside has 38 career starts. He's 29-9, so he's got a good record. He actually, surprisingly, I didn't know this, but doing some research here, he's 12th all time in career efficiency. So that, although the efficiency numbers in college can be a little skewed and tell more of the type of offense a guy runs, the type of competition he plays against, 12th all time is still nothing to scoff at. 10,000 career yards. So he's got some of the things that I like to see from a guy drafted that late. That shows me he's been doing it for a while and he's consistent in what he does. You know what I mean? Those are the types of guys that are gonna make an NFL team and be a backup quarterback in this league.
If I would have known skipping was an option, I would have probably chosen that. But I chose a guy. I'm not sure any of these guys are going to be legitimate starters ever. But I chose Kurt Benkert, and even though it's a horrible name, like, what were you doing naming him Kurt when his name ended in Kurt? That's just a bad decision. But he looked solid last year. I remember watching him. The only game that I actually saw him play was when he played number 3 Miami at the end of the season, and in the first half of that game, he was 17 for 18, 262, and 2 touchdowns. And he ended the game well. He went 28 for 37, 4 touchdowns and a pick. And when I watch him play, one of the big knocks on him is he has a low release. But if he can speed it up, I see a lot of similarities of Phillip Rivers in him, just the way he plays. He doesn't have like the same crazy attitude, but just in the way he plays, the way he throws the ball, and the way he moves around in the pocket. Not fast, not overly athletic, but has the ability to throw the ball well and pretty accurately. So he was the guy I like the most out of all of them.
All right, just for the record, by the way, the majority of grades on Luke Falk are round 4. So that's why I took that. So
grades always work out.
Well, I don't make the grades. I'm just following what everybody put out there. So
yeah.
All right, let's talk about
I'll be shocked. And I'm telling you, I'd be shocked if he's still there on day 3.
Let's talk about our friends at Gorb. All right, we talk about them each and every week, and really it's because we don't just jump on board and endorse things that we don't believe in. And our friends at Gorb remind us that every day you've got 2 choices. You could either get hungry or you can be hungry. And, a couple of years ago, we decided that it was time to get hungry and pursue this dream of talking football each and every week, breaking down these players in the draft, talking fantasy football. We wanted to go after it. We wanted to make sure that we didn't want to leave any doubt that a couple years from now, man, we wish we would have went after that. And that's what Gorb is all about. It reminds you to find what makes you, what drives you, what you're passionate about, and go after it. Don't wish that you would have done it, but get hungry instead of being hungry. You can check them out at gorb.com, GHORBH.com. You get all kinds of great gear there, shirts, sweatshirts, everything for men, women, kids. They've got you covered. Styles, more styles than you could shake a stick at, more colors, designs, everything. You've got to check it out, GHORBH.com. All right, so we're going to copy off what we did last week with the running back position and play some matchmaker here. All right, so Miles threw this idea out to us last week. We were all about it. We had some fun with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take teams who, we've kind of identified will potentially be looking for a quarterback. And the teams are Cleveland, the Jets, Buffalo, Denver, Arizona, Giants, Jacksonville, Baltimore, Miami, and New England. All right, so we're going to match them up with some of the quarterbacks in this class. Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Mason Rudolph, Luke Falk, and Kyle Lauletta. And just pulled those names off the consensus highest rankings. So two of the teams are obviously not going to end up with a quarterback here. All right, so what we're going to do is tell you how we decided where the player is going to land to the team, the general area of the draft, and why we think that might happen. So at the end, we'll go back and look, and we'll find the two teams that didn't end up with a quarterback and, highlight maybe why not or what might be some other options for them. So let's start it off here. Sam Darnold, okay? We don't have to get too far into breaking these guys down because the first five we've already talked about extensively. So give me your idea of which one of these teams he's going to end up with.
I have Sam Darnold with the Giants. I'm really struggling with them. It's funny, most years it takes at least till pick 6, 7 where I'm really not sure what a team's going to do. I really don't know what the Giants are going to do. If it's me, if they're smart, you take the quarterback. You just do it. You don't draft that high every year. This isn't the Jaguars. All due respect to the fact that they made the AFC Championship, but off the top of my head, I think it's the first time since 07 they didn't draft top 10. They're there all the time. Giants are never ever there. When you're there, do what. And I know they traded in, but the Rams are rarely there. They took the quarterback. The Eagles are never there. Take the quarterback. You got to take the quarterback. That roster is not nearly bad enough to do it again next year. They're going to be good. Take the quarterback. And for me, it's Sam Darnold for them. I think he's a great fit. Listen, they might trade out. They might take Nelson. They might take Chubb. They might take Barkley. I don't know. But if it's me, Sam Darnold, I love it to the Giants.
The last two times the Eagles were there, one, there wasn't a quarterback, so they took a tackle, and the other time they took Donovan. So when you're there, you got to take the quarterback. No, honestly, Maz, I couldn't agree with you more. I got Sam to the Giants as well. We'll talk about why I think he'll wind up there in a second, but I think the Giants jump all over it at pick 2.
I don't know if you're changing it up south, but I actually have Darnold to the Giants too for basically the same reasons. I don't think the Browns are going to take him, and I think that's their guy too.
I've got Darnold to the Giants as well. I think that they're looking at it as, look, we've got a little more time with Eli. Let's take the guy who, by all accounts, might be the most blue chip prospect of this group, and let him sit behind Eli and just learn and gather information, and then he's the guy. So, I think that's the way they're going to look at it. So,
wow. So 3 of us last week didn't agree once at running back, and now we're 4 for 4 on the first quarterback. I don't know what that stat leads to, but
all you needed was me to tie it all together.
You're the glue, right?
All right, Josh Rosen, where does he go?
I'm going to jump in first here because I don't know how I feel about it yet. I still haven't made my decision yet, but I have him going to the New York Jets at 3. I think that they want the safe bet. I think they want the ceiling and the floor of Rosen rather, because I think the Jets are at a point where their fan base might riot and burn the city to the ground if they miss again. You know what I mean? So,
which city? East Rutherford?
East Rutherford, New Jersey. Correct. The fan base as a whole will burn down their individual cities. No, so I got Rosen to the Jets. I mean, honestly, from my only good reason is it's the safest bet they can make.
I have you right division, wrong team. I think Buffalo's trading up for Josh Rosen. That's my. I want Cleveland to use 1 and 4. I don't believe it's going to happen. I think the Bills will be trading up to number 4, and they'll land Josh Rosen right there.
I 100% agree with everything Miles said. Same exact reasoning. Rosen to the Bills.
I actually have him going to the Broncos. Obviously if they skip the Broncos and go to 4, but I don't see that happening. I think the Browns are going to take all their picks this year because it hasn't worked for them trading out. They might as well try something different. Like you haven't been good at picking either.
They haven't shown the ability to adjust things that don't work in years.
Yeah, maybe they should just wrap it up. Like
I don't think so.
That might be the best option.
Go back to 31 teams.
Yeah, I am going to the Broncos at 5. I think that's a good fit for them. They need another quarterback again. They need to start over there, and he's a guy that I think fits their system well.
Well, Jill, just a quick question that I have for you. I don't not to belabor this, but Rosen being the most ready to start, does that change? That doesn't change anything for you, given that Denver's pretty much going to roll with Keenum this year, no matter what.
No, because even if they roll with Keenum, no matter what, he's still going to be ready to start next year. So I don't think that really changes anything for me.
I'll throw this out there now. If the Broncos draft Josh Rosen, he'll be their starting quarterback.
Could be. I agree that
he's at $18 million. Be darned, he's going to beat out Case Keenum.
Yeah.
All right, so Baker Mayfield, how does it shake out?
Baker screams Jets to me. It just does.
I hope you're right.
I know, and it's funny because I'm certainly not doing this for you. Like, I don't care if you're happy. I think we've established that over the last 17 years of our friendship, but I just don't care that much. But no, that's obviously only
mostly true.
Yeah, that's obviously only half true.
No, but it just listen, it takes a special type of guy to be the quarterback and leader in cities like New York and Boston and Philadelphia. It just does. And he has that brash attitude that I don't think he'll be fazed by media. He won't be fazed by, the stigma of what comes with being a Jets quarterback, which, in all due respect, for the last 50 years has been largely you're a joke. And I don't think he's the type of guy that's going to let anybody buy into that. He's his own guy. I think his confidence just works there. I think his skill set really works with what they have around him, what they have to offer him. I like Baker Mayfield to the Jets. I like him going number 3. It's just a good spot because it's high enough that it's respectful, but he's still playing with that chip that he went behind 2 other quarterbacks. And that only benefits New York.
Yeah,
I have Baker to the Jets too, and when he goes to the Jets, I'm going to call him Broadway Baker. There's nothing you can do to make me stop. That's his new name, Broadway Baker.
Most people are jumping on that bandwagon already. Deal. I hate to ruin it for you, but
I didn't think I made it up.
That's not new.
But I didn't think I made it up. But you guys would try to make me stop, and I can't.
I won't. Yeah, listen, I absolutely will not stop. I will get annoying with the Broadway Baker references.
I have Mayfield going to the Jets as well. So, last week nobody agreed on anything. So far, Miles and I are basically clones. And the biggest thing to me is when was the last time that a Jets quarterback just was the clear 100% leader of the team?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to get to a point where you have your guy who's the leader of your franchise. And when I look at the guys that could do it and add their talent, Baker's the guy. He just commands control of the field. That's what you want in your quarterback. That's what that organization desperately needs. And all the other reasons lumped in together, that's why he goes to the Jets.
I would not be upset if that happened. Obviously, you guys all know how I feel about Baker and the Jets. I didn't pick it that way. I don't, like I said, for the safeness of it, I didn't pick it that way. I think Baker, if it goes the way I think it goes, I think Baker winds up in Buffalo. I think that he also fits that city's desire to have a franchise quarterback. I think his attitude fits with that fan base. I think it would make them legitimate again. The only thing that might be weird is I don't know how they feel about having a smaller type, mobile type quarterback after just getting rid of Tyrod. But I don't think they're the same. But
they already love Doug Flutie. Why would they not want 2.0?
Stop it.
No, that's where I have. That's where I had Baker.
I'm gonna start calling you Lance. For those of you that don't get it, I'm not gonna give pub to anybody else. But all right. So then, is there anybody then that doesn't believe that Josh Allen is not going to the Browns?
No, I got Josh Allen the Browns.
The Browns.
I'm. You and much of draft Twitter is making me be right on this one. I think ultimately he's going number one.
Yeah, I feel like everything that they're doing as an organization right now is setting up their team to plug him in at some point. I mean, I know they have Tyrod right now, so you don't have to rush it if you don't want to, but it just feels like they're building that team to his skill set. So I think it'll be a slam dunk. All right. Lamar Jackson.
I am following my own mock from last week on this one. I don't know necessarily that's going to happen exactly how I said, where they'll trade back into the first round to do it. Lamar Jackson, as much as Baker Mayfield screams Jets, Lamar screams Patriots to me. It's not because obviously his playing style is the same as Tom Brady. Let's clear that idea out. They're slightly different athletes. but I do think what New England has shown is the ability to take a quarterback and make them play as well as they can, and that goes back to Brady. And it's easy to forget he was not a great prospect. There's a reason he went 199th. But then even Jimmy Garoppolo comes from a small school, played really well. Jacoby Brissett played really well when he had his chances. So you look at those three guys, and not only were they differing talents, they were very different skill sets. So the Pats have shown the ability to morph into what they're drafting. I think ultimately they'll see the potential in Lamar Jackson. And if any team in the league has to have the cockiness to think, we'll get it, like, why would the Pats not think they're going to make the best of him? So, we kind of said before, if somebody can figure him out just along the lines of Josh Allen, he'll be the best player ever. So why would you not be confident you can do that? So I like New England for Lamar Jackson.
I don't think he gets there.
To even 23, or are you saying my mock I had him 32?
Well, I mean, 23 is around the zone. But I think what's going to happen, and this is a very specific prediction. I already said earlier that I think Dez is going to go to Baltimore. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of addresses one of their main draft needs there. I think they move back a couple of spots, pick up a little bit more capital, and I think Lamar Jackson goes to the Ravens. I know that, as far as when you look at him versus Flacco, it's literally night and day, talent-wise, skill set, the way they play the game, everything. But from everything that I'm hearing, they're the team that is doing the most homework on Lamar. They're spending the most time with him. I just truly believe that they would get back enough capital to maybe fix the issues they have up front as well. So I think he's going to Baltimore.
I actually have Lamar winding up in Arizona. I mean, Sam Bradford, I don't think is the answer there long term. I think they know that. I think they have to do something at the quarterback position. And I don't know why. I mean, I know Arians isn't there, but Lamar Jackson screams like Arians to me. And if his presence is still in the building with what's left of the coaching staff and the players and stuff like that, I don't know. Lamar Jackson seems like just a great fit for that offense. They're going to be rebuilding in a big way soon. I mean, they're basically, they have 1 year left of Larry Fitzgerald. Matthew's gone. Who knows what's going to happen with Pat Pete. So really, you're just starting over with David Johnson, and that's it. And I don't know. I think if Lamar could benefit from a year of sitting behind Bradford, learning an NFL offense and then come in, that could be a scary combination.
A year or 3 weeks, it could be anything.
I don't know. Some of these guys, I think I'll just preface all this by saying I'm not sure that a lot of these guys go to any of these teams, but I picked Lamar Jackson to the Bills. I think 12 is too early to take him, but I think that as you'll see with Mason Rudolph coming up, that I think everybody goes before they draft, and that's scary for them. So it might force their hand a little bit. So I picked Lamar Jackson going to the Bills.
All right, so you mentioned the name Mason Rudolph. Like, we didn't really dive into him so much. There's some talk. Is he a first rounder talent-wise? Is he a first rounder because of the rush? Where do you see him going?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that he's another one of the risk guys that his ceiling's really high. Floor is probably pretty low, but I have him going to the Dolphins. Ryan Tannehill's still not the answer there. And I think that if we see a big run where 4 guys go in the top 5 picks, and then the Dolphins are still needing a quarterback, I think Mason Rudolph lands there.
Wow. So do you think they take him at 11?
Yeah.
Wow. That'll be not wow, like you're ridiculous, but coming into the draft process, it'd be shocking to think Mason Rudolph goes at 11.
I think that they could move back.
But even then, he's a top 20 pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he is.
Wow. I'll jump in since I'm talking. I have Mason Rudolph. I do believe he's a first-round talent. Again, backing up the fact that I didn't say wow because that's ridiculous. But I think he's a second-round pick, and he is my pick to go to the Broncos. Great fit there. And I'll back up what I said about Josh Rosen and still say it with Mason Rudolph. He beats out Case Keenum. He's the starting quarterback for the Broncos next year as their second-round pick.
I like Mason Rudolph a lot. And we didn't get to talk about him before. That made me a little sad because I think that if you're a Pac-12 quarterback and you played an offense like that, you're almost an afterthought. So if you are talked about as a potential first-round pick, it means you're special. And I think this guy is special. I think he's a first-round talent. I think he falls out of the first round. I also have him going to the Broncos in the second. I won't go as far as saying I guarantee he beats out Case Keenum, but I think he's better than Case Keenum.
I think Rudolph is a first-round talent as well. You guys hit the nail on the head with what you're really saying about him. I thought about him to Denver, but then the more that you hear about Denver, they're really not in a hurry, at least from what they're leaking out there to people, to address the quarterback position. They feel like they have other areas that they want to get at first. So I have them going to the Cardinals, but not necessarily at their original pick. I think the Cardinals are a candidate to maybe, move toward the front end of the second round, maybe even the very back end of night 1, if that's what it's going to take to kind of scoop him up. As we said, very talented player, obviously. I think that he would benefit from not having to play right away. So it's a good situation for that to happen, in my opinion. All right, let's talk about Luke Falk. I touched on him a little bit before, varying, about where people are expecting him to fall in the draft. But which of these teams would you see him likely ending up with?
Luke Falk to me is Ryan Tannehill's eventual replacement in Miami. I think that's their second round pick. I think they do it. They make the jump on it. I think he fits the mold of Adam Gase. I think he's the right size, the right arm strength, and I just think that I don't think they're gonna jump at someone in the early round knowing that they can take him in the second and maybe go get him some protection. That offensive line is going to need some help. So I think that's where they go in the first round, and then the second round, obviously, address the quarterback position.
I agree with you. I think that's the fit for him for the Dolphins. Could be a second-round pick, could be a third-round pick, to be honest with you. The Dolphins basically had a fire sale, so they've got plenty of needs. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, look at a quarterback until the third round. And I think Falk is kind of a guy talent-wise and area of the draft-wise that's going to kind of fall to them in that spot.
Yeah, there's not much more to add. I mean, the Ravens were the team for me, but I agree with the area of the draft. I don't think it's a first round thing for them, but they do need to look towards the future. It's not Joe Flacco. So Ravens for me are where I have Luke Falk landing.
He's actually the guy that I see as the Patriots type guy, a guy that, is a mid-range prospect, but they're like, yeah, we could turn this guy into something special like Jimmy Garoppolo. So yeah, I have Luke Falk ended up with the Patriots.
All right, last name on our list here is Kyle Lauletta. I know in our articles earlier on in the draft process, footballgoons.com, there was some love for Kyle. So where do we see him shaking out in this process?
To me, this is Bill Belichick's Jimmy Garoppolo. I just think that this is the type of guy that late round prospect, or later round prospect, Jimmy G, Kyle Lauletta, Tom Brady, they just develop those types of guys. You know what I mean? So that's just, small school, just kind of fits the bill of what Jimmy Garoppolo was. So that's what I went with. I
went there too. Mostly because I wanted to throw in a Sal Garoppolo reference. It just feels like it's a cousin Sal 2.0 kind of move. Every comp that it gets seems to be a Garoppolo comp. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't completely buy into that comp. I think it's kind of lazy. But I do think it's the type of player and the type of area of the draft where the Patriots would look at a quarterback.
I have Lauletta to the Jaguars. His big knock is his arm strength, and the Jags are just littered with those underneath kind of receivers. It's the way that the offense worked for them last year, was running it through Leonard Fournette at running back, and then Marquise Lee chipping away. And D.D. Westbrook's kind of more the deep guy, but I just like Lauletta to be able to come in there. He's not going to be the starter, but they're the type of team that should really be looking for a guy where they don't lose a step if he's in the game. Not necessarily for the quarterback of the future. Call me a sucker. I know I'm a sucker. I still don't think Blake Bortles is done, but I like Lauletta as a backup quarterback for them.
I have Lauletta going to the Cardinals. I probably pick 79. I don't think they would have to take him at 47. And I think he's a guy that's going to fit in their system and, get a new start there. It's going to be a complete overhaul other than David Johnson. So why not just try something here?
All right, so let's just go down the line quickly to put a button on it here. Just recap the two teams that you didn't have addressing quarterback and, not super detailed, but do they eventually, take somebody in the class later on, or are they waiting?
I have Cardinals and Dolphins as my two that did not address quarterback. And honestly, to me, you can't put this in the public, obviously, or tell your fan base or any of that. But internally, the Cardinals know they're not going to be competitive for the next year or two. And Miami should feel the same exact way. So if I'm those two teams, I'm spending days 1 and 2 kind of just getting talent elsewhere. And then I've got my eye on 2019, which is nowhere near the class, at least right now, that we have in front of us in 10 days. But I'm looking at the possibility of Shea Patterson, Drew Lock, Jarrett Stidham. There's some decent quarterbacks coming out that, if they have the right year, are locks for top 5 picks. And personally, I think the Cardinals and Dolphins are the worst two teams on this list and are also locks for top 5 picks next year. So, listen, if you're not going to be good, don't take Kyle Lauletta. How is that helpful? That's not helpful. Take Josh Rosen, but he's not going to be there. So I think those two teams internally have to admit we've got to have our eye on the real long game here, and that's not the guys in this class we're going to be able to get.
I picked the Jaguars for the opposite reason. It seems like they still believe in Blake for some reason. I'm not sure. They're with you, believing in Blake, so putting all your eggs in Blake's basket.
Did we not say
you're putting all your eggs in Blake's basket? You're just trusting Blake to carry that egg basket. Yeah, I think they still believe in Blake, and I think their team is so well put together that right now they don't need to spend a round 1 to 3 pick on a quarterback when they're going to let Blake play for at least 3 more years here. So, and I also picked the Ravens because God knows why they still believe in Joe Flacco. So,
yeah, I actually went with Jacksonville and Baltimore as well, Deal. Kind of the same reasons. Like Jacksonville, they were they were one game away from the Super Bowl last year with the team that they have right now. I think they're going to add some pieces that they think they were missing and try and get right back there the same exact way they just did. So I don't look for them to change much. I don't think that they're going to – I don't think that putting someone, behind Blake Bortles to have him looking over his shoulder is the right way to build his confidence, even though you kind of need to in a way just to protect yourself. But I think that would hurt Blake more than it would help the Jaguars. And I don't think they want to do that. And honestly, I don't love Joe Flacco. And I think that they do need to address it, but I don't think this is the year for them because I think that they're caught right in the middle of they're not going to get one of the top 4. It's too early to reach for the middle 2. And by the time they come up again, they may be out of luck. You know what I mean? So unless they trade back, I don't see them making any moves either.
I had Denver. I mentioned earlier that everything I've heard, unless one of these top guys falls in their lap, then they feel like Keenum is better than the other options based on where they're picking, how they'd have to reach, etc. I kind of agree with that. They're also not averse to throwing some money at veteran guys, so they could just follow that route for the rest of eternity. So, who knows? And then my other team was Jacksonville, and not because I necessarily believe in Blake or whatever, but they're going to take Mike White, and then in the next 3 or 4 years, they're going to win a Super Bowl. So, that's how I see that unfolding, because to me, Mike White's my guy. And you put him on that team with all that talent and let him kind of sit and, slowly marinate in the background, that's a scary proposition to me. So that's how I had it breaking out. All right, well, that's going to do it for the NFL Draft Preview Series on the podcast. Listen, you are going to want to be live with us on YouTube next Sunday night, 9 o'clock. It is our annual Goons live mock draft. All right. Every guy's got a division that was randomly assigned to them. So all 4 of us are going to be drafting for the teams in our division. We'll explain how it all breaks out for you next week, but it's in real time. It's a lot of fun. Expect the unexpected to happen at times. Expect the expected to happen at times. But it's awesome. You get to sit back, relax, and watch a live mock draft. Chime in with your comments. Tell us how dumb we are. Tell us how smart we are. Whatever you want to do. But you definitely want to be a part of it. You can get all the information leading up to that. Facebook.com/footballgoons, @footballgoons on the Twitter, or right here on our YouTube page. As I said, that'll be live 9 o'clock on the 22nd, Sunday night. That's Eastern time, so you are definitely going to want to be tuned in for that. This week, we'll wrap up our NFL Draft Stock Watch articles as well. We'll have one last NFL mock draft on the site for you, so keep it locked into footballgoons.com as well. The draft prep process is kind of dwindling down a little bit, but we are not. Make sure you stay up with us online and on social media. We'll catch you guys next time.